A madhouse. 14 top survival experts gathered in 7 duos, each representing their country or region, about to launch the first true global survival war in every sense of the word. No newbies, no pushovers, and absolutely no flukes here, because everyone standing here has already beaten the wilderness once. Some have set records in brutal cold. Some have taken down apex predators. Some are known as predators of the wilderness itself, and now they're finally going to tear into each other for the same prize, $200,000, the crown of ultimate survivor and the pride of their homeland. They bill it as the Survival Olympics, set in Zululand, among the deadliest regions in South Africa, home to lions, hyenas, buffalo, rhinos, and crocodiles. Daytime temperatures reach 40 degrees, while nights are cold enough to make you shiver. Over the next 40 days, all teams will cross 3 completely different ecosystems. They'll have to hunt, live off the land, find water, and build shelter. They're not just trying to stay alive. They also have to take out rival nations in brutal one-on-one showdowns. Intense is an understatement. This will be the most spectacular wilderness survival challenge. First up is Team East Coast USA, Matt and Gabby. He's a famed top-tier hunter who's dropped big game in the wild time and again with his bow. With Matt around, you can lie flat and eat meat each meal. In the eyes of other contestants, he's the war god of the wild, absolute ceiling of the survival world, idol of survival experts.
Wow, Matt Wright is here. Really odd to me to face my idols.
And his partner Gabby is no pushover either. This woman can stay calm in extreme environments. She can tough out days without food. Folks say she's one of the show's most slept on female hunters. Once these 2 hard cases got paired up, everyone knew from the start this season's survival game would be anything but normal. With the first team revealed, this global wilderness war had finally, truly begun. Elite survival masters from around the globe arrived one after another. The second team to appear was the Texas duo, Jeff and Kayla. Jeff is easily one of the show's most hotly debated figures. To some, he's a survival ace. To others, a madman off the leash. But nobody can deny his survival instinct out there is absolutely terrifying. And his partner Kayla is no pushover either. She has incredible stamina and adaptability, able to keep moving, even in extreme conditions. With these 2 paired up, it's obvious the production team wants to see what matters more, teamwork or individual survival ability. Aside from these 2 most talked about teams, the remaining 5, the rest are all battle-tested in the wild. Some come in riding their reputation, others let their skills do the talking. But the real ranking only begins the moment they step into the wilds of Zululand. Once they arrive, everyone has to strip down right in front of the others. I have to complain here. Their honesty multiplied my post-production workload by at least 10 times. I blurred so many shots my hands nearly fell off. On the way in, Jeff and Kayla stumbled on some jaw-dropping tracks. These tire-sized tracks were left by elephants, and the sheer size of Africa's wild elephants blew their minds. Those tracks instantly flipped Jeff's survival switch. His gut told him to throw up a solid, fenced-in camp. All the survival experts started their challenge in Zone 1, a humid savanna where day-night temperatures can swing nearly 40 degrees. The open grasslands are rich hunting grounds, but danger lurks everywhere. Skilled players can eat their fill like royalty, while the weak can only tremble in fear. All teams are now at their drop points. They grab the prepped satchels, raise their flags, and file out onto the grassland one by one, the air instantly turning tense.
That shit done.
Is that here?
Yeah. Oh, we got Matt here.
Jeff and Matt had clashed in a previous challenge, and now these former rivals are face to face again. The 2 of them can't even wait for the official start. The tension is already impossible to hide. So when they gather under the big tree, they're listening to the rules, but the fight has already begun, with Matt opening fire on Danny.
Hey, Dan, you gonna defend that title? You won once. Everybody gets lucky once in a while.
I guess so.
Last season skills champ Danny just comes right out and says everyone here is someone he's already beaten. The others hold their tongues, but their faces make it clear they don't buy Danny's so-called champion title. This survival challenge uses a points-based system with last place elimination. Each team earns points through survival tasks and one-on-one challenges, and the points they earn can be used to exchange for basic supplies. The production team makes it clear that, except for your teammate, teams are forbidden to trade supplies or share food with other teams. My goodness, this rule has finally arrived. It's practically tailor-made for Jeff. In previous seasons of the Survival Challenge, Jeff was targeted and retaliated against by everyone because he hoarded his food instead of sharing and got sold out by his teammate. Jeff says the food he risked his neck to get doesn't have to be shared with anyone. If you don't have the ability to survive here, then just quit early, leeching off others' food and coasting to the end. How does that make you a hero? Matt, though, thinks the exact opposite. Out in the wild, folks should have each other's backs. A saying goes, once you take help or eat someone's food, you can't stay cold to them. After the other teams accepted Matt's supplies, they rallied around him. Under Matt's ideological leadership, almost everyone started targeting Jeff. Poor Jeff was singled out like that all the way to the end. Although the production team didn't step in to stop the bullying against Jeff, they saw everything. And that's exactly why this new rule was added this season. Teams ought to battle on equal footing, cutting off freeloaders and opportunists, and blocking some folks from banding together. Stay tuned, Jeff. Next, the contestants will face a 24-hour insertion challenge where they must complete multiple stages within a day to earn points. First, they have to retrieve some survival items from a tree. They're issued just one tool to start: a machete. Once they get the items, they must complete the 3 basics of survival at their site: build a camp, get clean water, and make fire. Hearing fire makes everyone tense. No one expected production team to crank up the difficulty on day 1. The very first challenge is primitive fire making. It looks primitive, but doing it is pure torture. If the angle or pressure of the fire bow is off by even a bit, all your effort is wasted. Jeff once spent an entire day on primitive fire making. His hands were practically shredded, and he still couldn't get a flame. Even Matt has eaten dirt on this task before. Primitive fire making is just that vicious.
Cannot believe we are doing primitive fire day 1.
After learning the rules, they grabbed machetes and ran into the bush. First up, they've got to knock those basic supplies out of the tree. Nobody's getting cut today. But any team that finishes every challenge bags 200 points. They can only choose one item from the unlocked survival gear. So this is a race against time. The basic gear dangles 6 meters up a tree, and Matt's first move is to tie the machete to a long pole and cut the rope from below. Danny decides to build a ladder and climb up. He proves he's a wild overachiever and naked and afraid. When others are lying around starving, he's always pushing for the hunt and testing the limits. His teammate Rachel is rock solid with strong follow-through. The moment Danny says he wants to build a ladder, Rachel is already off gathering wood. The other teams also plan to lash the machete to a long branch as a DIY long-handled blade. For such a seemingly simple task, these survival experts somehow end up looking totally flustered. They're scrambling all over for decent dead branches, fumbling so badly it's nerve-wracking to watch. Matt's team whips up a jury-rigged long-handled knife, long enough to snag the supplies and slice the rope. Jeff's team is close behind, but Lindsay is using a knife to smooth and shape the branch. Sometimes being too meticulous just wastes time. Matt's team grabs the basic supplies first, while other contestants chop wood and build ladders. Seeing how fast Matt's team is, the rest of the team start to panic. No one expected something this simple to trip up so many people. Most of the other teams finally copy the improvised long-handled knife approach, while Danny, the overachiever, is still busy building his ladder. As the others are still scrambling around, Matt's team is already at their camp, kitted out with 2 warm cowhides, metal pot for boiling water, cotton tinder to make fire. Next, they must boil water daily and build shelter. Beyond Africa, nights swarm with prowling beasts, so a sturdy fenced camp is a must. Matt and Gabby chop nearby thorny branches and clear out an open space for their camp. There's no real technique to this. It's all brute force. While some teams are still fumbling just to get their sickles tied on, the Brazilian duo, Renee's team, are the next to pull it off. The third team to finish is the Australian duo, Kelly and Alyssa. Even more unexpected, some folks actually used the blade to chop through it, while Jeff's team even used the knife's serrated back to saw wood and rig up a ladder.
他们还没从幻想里醒过来，其他到生存点的选手陆续扎营了。
The Brazilian pair, Renee and Marina, are steady and methodical throughout. In past seasons, they never shone like Matt, but their performance has always been solid. They're more like true jungle players. Don't rush, don't panic, observe first, then act. Teams using long-handled blades are getting supplies one by one. This is without question the simplest way. In the first stage, only Frank's team and Danny's team are left. They chose a more high-tech method to get their supplies, making a simple task needlessly complex and totally wearing themselves out. After all that effort building a ladder, how to hook it up there becomes their new headache. Realizing this won't work, they can only switch to a tied-on extension tool. Had they known it'd end like this, what was the point of messing around with that ladder? Both overachiever teams take a big hit in the first stage, and in the end, they both give up on the ladder approach. Switching tactics, Frank and Teal end up snagging their supplies first, while Danny's team was still floundering. Last season's champs opened this run at rock bottom. After a lot of effort, they finally got their supplies. Next, 3 more challenges were waiting for them. All teams were building their camps, a physically demanding process. For Renee, who works out regularly, this was where he felt especially confident. On the African plains, a shelter isn't only to block wind and rain. More importantly, you have to put up a fence first, because the real danger at night isn't the cold, it's the beasts lurking out there. The contestants had to beat the sunset, hacking branches, hauling them back to camp, and throwing a thorny, low-tech barrier for safety. The Australian team of Kelly and Alyssa was the only all-female team among the 7. Building a shelter was a clear disadvantage for them. Alyssa was reminded of last season's challenge, African Apocalypse. Back then, the shelter made from wrecked cars was built by their teammates, but this time they could only count on their own strength. Matt's and Renee's teams wrapped up their camps first, earning 50 points. Meanwhile, 4 other teams were still locked in a tight race. It was already after 5 p.m., with only about an hour left before sunset. Pablo's camp was still unfinished. Even though he was already exhausted, he couldn't afford to stop. And just as he was chopping wood, an accident happened.
What happened?
Pablo's lower leg took the hit, and blood gushed out at once. The competition had just begun. If this wasn't handled well, it would affect the rest of the game. His teammate Fernanda immediately called the medic over. After cleaning the wound, hearing that made his teammate's scalp tingle. If they couldn't control the wound, he'd be out. If the injury can't be brought under control, he won't be able to continue in this challenge. The doctor is stitching up Pablo's wound. Fernanda, meanwhile, shoulders the shelter work alone, chopping wood, reinforcing the fence, sealing gaps, and completing the hardest part of primitive living before dark, an almost impossible task for Pablo. Meanwhile, the other teams are moving along in an orderly way. Matt's team was already trying to live primitive, while Jeff's team had only just wrapped up their camp. But while everyone was still busy with shelters, Danny's team suddenly pulled ahead. But the real killer for them today is the primitive living part. As soon as they finish their camps, all the contestants are dead on their feet, and just thinking about burning more energy on friction fire. Still, they must push on. Kelly chooses a bow drill for fire. Basically, it works like this. Loop the bowstring once around the spindle. As the spindle twirls, it grinds against the notched board and throws off embers, with wood dust from friction sharing into carbon bits. Once it's hot enough, that little carbon ember can finally catch the tinder. When the idea hit, she went to work, her tools laid out. Kelly immediately threw herself into making a fire without a moment's rest, drilling until her hands throbbed, yet still no decent fire to show for it. Kelly sees the embers from the drill are a weak, pale color, which means the wood dust is unlikely to turn into real charcoal. Primitive living has never been an easy thing. Before this, Kelly and Danny had already shot a 21-day Level 1 Primitive Survival Challenge in 2026. They hit the same wall there, tried 4 fire-making methods, and still couldn't get a flame.
可以去主页看完整那期。太阳落山时，
Their vision inside the camp gets worse and worse. Matt and Gabi, still in the lead, still can't get a fire going, which really proves how brutal primitive survival is out here. In the end, Matt's team decides to call it quits for the night, get some rest, and try again tomorrow. Around 11 p.m., the beasts start howling, jolting everyone awake. They huddle in their shelters, on edge, without the safety of a fire. A pack of wild dogs prowls outside the camp, and Kelly's shelter is the weakest of the lot. If those dogs really decided to jump in, not even Jesus could save them.
好在凯里冲外面吼了一嗓子，野狗才不情愿地散开。
Next morning, at first light, the two of them immediately start planning how to make fire, because no fire means no boiled drinking water. Kelly and Alyssa head out to hunt for better fire-making materials, and Matt's thinking along the same lines. He wants to find fig wood to use for fire, while the other teams stick to their original plans.
Jeff 也备好了好几种木头，这就是老选手的优势所在。
He suffered before on this primitive fire-making challenge. Every time he's had to make fire from scratch, it's been a nightmare for him. This time, he's going to take on the challenge again. Can he come back like a king? Jeff doesn't rush into it. He carefully shapes and polishes all the materials he's gathered, and once everything's prepped, Jeff and Kayla start the fire ritual. Let's see if they spark a flame. Matt and Gabi are still out searching for fig trees. Fig wood is usually light and soft, with fine fibers, so easy to grind into charcoal dust by friction. Perfect for fireboard or spindle. With good materials, they get more done with less effort. Like the saying, sharpening the axe doesn't slow woodcutting. They finally spot a dried trunk out west. Now their fire success pretty much hinges on this one piece of wood. Meanwhile, the Australian team, Kelly and Alyssa, are still searching for materials. They also want to find fig wood, but not everyone is that lucky. And to save time, they have to settle for acacia instead. While everyone else is going with the standard bow drill method, overachiever, Danny has a different idea. He wants to use cotton and charcoal for a cotton roll friction fire method.
原理就是把木炭和棉花搓在一起，夹在2块木板中间摩擦，把火搓出来。
This cotton roll trick I've never seen before. Totally fits his overachiever label. Seems that 21-day Thailand Island run with Kelly didn't teach him much.
他们折腾过4种生活法，这次他又整花活。虽然丹尼以前生活表现很亮眼，
That doesn't guarantee he'll win this time. Danny planes the wood smooth, and Rachel finds a charred piece of wood nearby. That piece gives them ready-made charcoal. They mix the charcoal with cotton, then rub it between the boards. After a burst of effort, they do get some smoke, but their hands start to ache quickly. Frank's team is in the same boat. They go with the traditional bow drill method, but all they get is a cloud of smoke. Frank's likely too wiped to keep sawing the drill, and Teal's stuck on the sidelines. If Frank can't handle the physical work, there's no way Teal can. They try several different types of wood, but the dampness ruins every attempt. Show rules require all 3 challenges done within 24 hours. There isn't time for trial and error. This fire-making task everyone thought they knew. Once they actually get hands-on, they realize it's far tougher than they imagined. The drill spun non-stop as thick smoke rose from the fireboard. But smoke doesn't mean fire. What they need isn't smoke. It's a real ember hot enough to ignite the tinder, so they could only keep making adjustments. If the wood felt wrong, they changed it. If the board was still damp, they resanded it. If the angle was off, they cut a new groove. Each failure drained their strength, so Matt's team reset and reorganized all their fire-making gear. This time, they worked the drill as a team and soon had plenty of embers. They placed the embers onto dry tinder, and now all it took was a gentle blow. Coax it into flame. They were one step closer to $200,000. Matt's shout rolled over to the other teams, and everyone's faces suddenly looked a bit complicated. Some lowered their heads in silence, some forced calm, and some had not convinced on their faces. They're all elite survivalists, and no one wants to admit they're a step behind. An invisible pressure settled over the camp, and the hands chopping wood suddenly sped up. With fire, they could boil water. Matt took a pot to the stream to fill it. Then they rigged a tripod, hung the pot over the flames to boil. 3 hours still remained in the challenge. Matt's team had already completed all the tasks and secured 200 points, so they'd snag first pick of the supplies. Judging by things now, everyone else was way behind. To finish both the fire starting and water boiling before noon, they'd need a miracle. Jeff was under pressure. Primitive fire is his worst nightmare. If he failed again this time, the whole world would decide Jeff just can't make fire. He's ready to keep trying over and over if needed, and their method is actually right. Their setup is spot on. What they're really missing is endurance. If they could copy Matt's team, both of them working the drill together to keep up the friction and pile up embers, they'd for sure get a fire going. But over at Jeff and Renee's side, they're doing the exact same thing wrong. One guy's grinding the bow, the other's just standing there watching. He just can't keep up the ember making, and that's why they're losing. After a brief rest, Renee and his partner sync up again, and he pours every last bit of strength into working that drill. They scrape together a few embers, but still not enough to light the tinder. Renee sees that teaming up works. Back with the Grind King's crew, Danny's palms are grinding so hard they could catch fire, while Rachel stands sighing. You can feel she's buzzing with unused energy, while her teammate is running himself ragged trying to make fire. Rachel's griping about the sun, no water, and nothing to eat. Danny figures the cotton cord method just isn't reliable enough, so he switches over to the rope drill setup. The rope drill method is similar to the spindle drill fire technique. He wraps a rope directly around the spindle, then yanks the ends to spin the drill. Once Danny resets, he and Rachel run the drill. The spindle spins fast and throws embers. Danny quickly wraps the tinder around it, but the embers die out before he can even blow. Danny's team and Renee's team have made the same mistake. They still don't have a decent ember pile going, and there's under an hour left on the clock. Jeff is wiped out and panting, while Kayla just stands there like a display prop, watching, as if starting fire is Jeff's job, and only when they realize fire-making is a two-person task will they actually stand a chance. Matt's team strolls over to visit. Jeff clocks him instantly. Matt acts like he's there to give pointers, but he's there to sneer, looping around camp, tossing a "you got this," then walking off. That nice guy act is totally blown for Jeff now. And over with Frank, it's the same deal. He's doing all the bow drill work by himself, while his teammate just watches. It looks simple, but they just can't get a fire going. They move all their gear out into the sun, hoping the sun will give them a bit more heat. It doesn't really boost your odds of success, but at least it won't add any moisture. Let's hope he manages to get that fire lit. Danny and his teammate Rachel are working together, and it does save energy, but they're out of sync, and the drill keeps losing its rhythm as it spins. Down to the last 30 minutes, the sun and sheer exhaustion are cranking their dehydration risk up. Kelly and Alyssa are still grinding, but again, one's doing all the work while the other watches. They're failing for a simple reason. They can't keep the drill going long enough to build up enough embers. Teaming up to share the workload is their only way out. Once Kelly is spent, Alyssa grabs the fire-making tools. She starts working the drill, and then Kelly jumps back in to help. As smoke billows, Kelly gently scoops up the ember, nests it in the tinder bundle, and blows. Her teammate grabs dry grass as backup. As the smoke thickens, the tinder suddenly catches. They fling their arms up and bellow, every yell dumping all the frustration they've been holding in. You can tell from this just how brutal primitive living really is. Kelly's team is the second to spark a fire, earning priority in picking gear and supplies. After they finally get the water boiling, this Australian women's team secures 200 points. At this point, there are still 5 teams struggling to make fire. Time is extremely tight now, and the other teams speed up their bow drill strokes. Even when they coax a fish tendon ember, it won't catch. Jeff's station is just as bad. His partner stands watching like entertainment. Lene's team finally gets smoke, but they grind out thick smoke again and again, only to watch their hope die out. Frank goes for one last all-out push. After he resets his materials, his teammate keeps reminding him time is almost up. It's a 2-person challenge, yet the teammate treats Frank as a pack mule. Under the sun, Frank's hands are on fire working the bow. The drill, spinning at high speed, starts to pour out thick smoke as well. He lifts out the fish tendon ember and gets aflame, earning 50 points for his team. Up to this moment, 24 hours are gone. On every failed team, disappointment is written all over their faces. They've spent nearly every ounce of strength on that fireboard. Some hide their faces and go quiet. Others just fold onto the ground. Some crumple to the ground spent. Others fixate on the heap of smoking wood dust, eyes refusing to accept it. This is Jeff's 3rd primitive fire fail. Kayla stays silent, but you can still see a hint of disappointment on his face. Only Frank's team can still manage a smile at the very end. The winners get first pick of gear, and everyone regroups out on the grassland. The winners smile, while those who failed look deflated. Matt steps up to read the rankings. For now, his team sits on top. Watching Matt act so smug, Jeff is clearly not pleased. The Australian women's duo takes 2nd place, showing that women can hold up half the sky. Frank's team didn't complete the challenge, but with 150 points, they still rank 3rd, and he's satisfied. Next, they move on to new challenges, but the teams below the red line now face elimination, and their only shot at more points is an optional challenge. Building a bridge. If they manage to pull it off, they'll earn 100 points. But what matters isn't the points. It's opening access to the hunting grounds across the river. For teams already feeling the hunger, that's the most concrete lifeline they can get. And with crocs lurking in this river, with crocs in that river, a bridge is essential before Stage 2 starts. Each team can use their points to pick corresponding supplies. Teams with 50 points pick a fire starter, while higher scoring teams get more options. Frank's team grabs 2 bow sets, and the frontrunners already have both bows plus a folding saw, one for hunting, one for building the bridge. Are the low-scoring teams doomed, with no chance of a comeback? Hit like and subscribe to catch the latest season of Wilderness Survival.